Hello, I'm Martin Kelly, editor of Fringe Journal, and today we are having a author chat with Ron McDonald. Ron is a friend from Memphis. He's a pastoral counselor and a folk singer and a storyteller. So you do a lot, Ron. Thank you for coming here with us.
Thank you.
And Ron has an article in the current issue of Fringe Journal, September 2014, and it's on white narcissism. And it's an intriguing concept. So, can you tell us a little bit about what you mean by white narcissism?
Well, narcissism is a psychiatric term that's often used to describe a person who is self possessed and exploitative of other people. It's also a term that's used when we talk about a kind of a pleasant narcissism, the center of attention at a party. I mean, I'm a performer, so I have a fair dosage of narcissism in me, but there's a line where it crosses where narcissism becomes a destructive force in relationships, where we begin to be exploitative. We want to be the center of attention all the time. And the idea came to me when I watched the movie 12 Years a Slave, when I saw what we often refer to in counseling as narcissistic panic. That is where I am either the center of attention or I'm nothing. And the white folks, the white slave owners in the movie, displayed that with regularity. In the actor, it was a picture of someone who was saying, "Oh my goodness, I have just lost all my self-esteem because I'm being put down by someone who's more talented than me," which was Solomon Northup, the slave, who was really in many ways a genius of sorts, both as a writer and as a just extraordinarily talented person. And when that would shine through and disturb the white people there, it was really clear to me. I was watching, for the first time, it became clear to me that I was watching people being trained in how to be a narcissist. The prime example was the Master Epps and how narcissistic he came across. Very unlikable. And white narcissism, I think, is the generational transmission that has gone for particularly for us Southerners. I think we're all stuck in a narcissistic view of race, where white makes right and black makes wrong. And we're not that radical about it in our way of talking about it, but you can see it. It's very visible when you get white people and black people now talking about race together. There is among white people a huge defensive wall that goes up that's very disturbing to me to see. The term white privilege, for instance, is a sociological term mainly, and as soon as you start talking about white privilege, you'll get a huge amount of white people resisting even the idea of it. And as a pastoral counselor, I know that sociology and psychology are in a loop with each other. Sociology feeds psychology, and psychology returns that. And I think that white privilege is the sociological term. White narcissism is the psychological feedback in that loop.
Okay, so it's for like the individual versus the group. So the individual feels that sort of white narcissism, but it's reinforced and, as you say, even perhaps transmitted through the sociological way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So how does this like play out like day-to-day activities? Like how would people on the street here necessarily? In your article, you talked a few times about things that you could do that a person of color wouldn't be able to do, for instance.
Uh-huh. Well, the most disturbing thing that you see in the South is that we have moved from the excitement of early integration in the 60s and 70s to almost a resegregation of our social lives. Uh, it's very disturbing to me to see how few churches, how few Quaker meetings, how few social settings are well integrated nowadays. The work environment is fairly well integrated, but it doesn't transfer to the social and religious arenas, the two arenas that probably mean the most to us in many ways. And I think we have lost our ability to talk effectively about race relations, even though in the South, race relations is in front of everything. It's the primary issue that we still struggle with in the South, and it may be true in the North too.
Sure. Well, it certainly is. I do want to put out there. I mean, just sort of my commute home. You go through these bands that are just racially very diverse. The black areas and the white areas, and
Right.
oftentimes a highway going right between them. And it doesn't seem to be coincidence that they put a wide barrier between those two sections. So
Yeah.
it's up here as well. Um,
Right.
well, and was it Martin Luther King Jr. who said the most segregated hour in America is Sunday morning, and
11 o'clock.
it's still true, perhaps. And there are some, even among friends, there are some diverse meetings, but a lot of them aren't. You at one point in the article say that churches can be sort of havens for white narcissism. What happens when you have a church that is um, only one race?
To me, the essence of narcissism is a defensive wall. The line between that kind of pleasant narcissism and that ugly narcissism is whether or not that there's defensiveness or defendedness in a person. I don't mind people telling me I'm a narcissist if I'm not defensive about that, because I do have characteristics of narcissism in me, just like everybody does. But if I got defensive about it, then it would really, there would be a wall that got in the way of discussion. And I think that churches have that problem. We've gotten so defensive about listening to charges of racism or white privilege that we've lost our ability to talk easily with each other. And so that if you go to a black church, every black person in that church will have talked about and will talk easily about the problem of race. But in a white church, we don't have a language for it. The article, in many ways, is my attempt to give us at least a term to talk about something that is a psychological problem that we have, white narcissism.
Thank you very much for that. And it's also, we're going to be talking about this a lot more. The next issue of Friends Journal is the experiences of friends of color, and we're putting it together now. And there's some, some pretty bad stories, terrible stories, and some pieces of hope. So, definitely the friends of color who are writing it are talking about race a lot. So, hopefully, we have white narcissism as a way of being able to start entering that conversation. So the conversation will continue, and
Good.
you've helped to start it here. So again, for everyone, it's a featured article this week, Friends Journal. It's available on friendsjournal.org. Ron McDonald's White Narcissism. So thanks for coming with us here, Ron, and let's continue this conversation.
Thank you very much. Let's do.